everybody, my name is Dusty and welcome to my channel. Today I got something back and it's for school. If you don't know, there are two things that I mention almost in every single video because apparently that's the only two qualities that I have in my life that actually matter. One is that I'm currently attending university, and two is the fact that I study political science. Periodically in my college career there comes a time when we have to propose a research project and we have no idea what we want to do, so I always throw something at the wall and hope it sticks, and in this particular instance, it stuck. This project is something I've been working on for over a month and a half. It's a culmination of one of my last political science courses that I need to graduate university next year, and it's kind of like the capstone of my college career. So we had to pick a research topic and do research on it. The topic I chose was this: comparing state regulations on ornamental fish to that of dogs. So I chose to compare dogs to fish. It's a very interesting topic, I know. I'm going to be holding my paper because I'm basically presenting it to you all. When I thought about this video, the thing is I'm running very short on content at the moment because I am preparing to winterize my dorm, which means taking my fish home, so adding anything new or redesigning a whole bunch of other things doesn't really make sense at the moment, so I'm not doing videos about my fish necessarily, but about ideas in the hobby. And one of the things I want to do is share my research paper with you all, because I think this is the one group of people that would legitimately enjoy hearing about this sort of thing. Something that came to my mind while watching Aquarium Co-op's videos, they always do unboxing, and one of the things that I thought about was, what are the regulations in various states about importing fish, exporting fish? What are things about private breeders? Like, are there any laws or regulations on private breeders? And I wanted to kind of compare the idea of dogs to fish, because I think dogs are more oftentimes seen as more personable and are often regulated more heavily than fish. So I wanted to look at ornamental fish, and ornamental fish are like koi, tropical fish, goldfish, anything that's not naturally found in our ecosystems. So I picked 4 states I wanted to compare: Wisconsin, California, Missouri, and Wyoming. I picked those 4 states for a variety of reasons. I picked Wisconsin not only because I am from Wisconsin, but also because I think it's a very interesting idea that the Asian carp right now are in the Mississippi River, and Wisconsin is apparently the link from Asian carp getting from the Mississippi River into Lake Michigan. Not only that, just next to one of the largest Great Lakes, one of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world, so there should be some sort of regulation, you would think. I picked California because a lot of imports come into California and then get shipped off to the rest of the country, so I wanted to look at California. I also picked Mississippi because it's right on the Mississippi River. I thought Asian carp, it has some sort of link, maybe. And then I also picked Wyoming because of Yellowstone National Park. In this video, I'm going to talk as though you don't know much about research papers, primarily because I don't know the level of education or level of knowledge on this topic that everybody has, so I'm going to assume everybody's at the same level, and that's what I was at like 2 months ago. Research papers, particularly this one, have drawbacks. There are certain things that we aren't able to look at or don't think about researching until we're all done and we put our research together and we think, what is something we could have changed? For me, that thing is not only looking at state laws, but looking at federal laws, looking at demographics, looking at political parties, looking at political ideology. There's a lot of things I didn't look at. I looked specifically at laws and nothing more than laws. And I wish I didn't, but that was how it was set up in my mind when I proposed the idea. So I didn't record my presentation, but I did actually have to give a presentation on my topic. And the main idea is, because tropical fish are mostly labeled as invasive species like goldfish, you'd think there'd be more regulation on them than dogs because they have a more devastating impact on the ecosystem. I have sources that state that the aquarium trade is specifically responsible for a lot of the world's most dangerous and invasive species getting into native ecosystems. And while this idea to me seemed crazy because I know a lot of responsible fish owners, it wasn't too far-fetched. Something else I did was I compared the state's news outlets as well to see if any of them were reporting on ornamental type fish becoming invasive. I thought that maybe if somewhere down the road an invasive species did get into an ecosystem that was from the aquarium trade, the news sources in the area would report on it, and maybe that would be a change for state laws. It was an idea, right? Yeah, cool. So I asked 7 questions, and I'm reading it off of here because the questions don't stay in my mind very long. Are there any laws and regulations on ornamental type fish within the state? Are there any laws or regulations on native fish within the state? Are there any mentions of ornamental type fish on the government websites? Are there any news sources reporting on ornamental type fish becoming invasive? Are there any laws or regulations on non-aggressive dogs within the state? Are there any guidelines or recommendations from the state on proper care of non-aggressive dogs? And are there any mentions of non-aggressive dogs on government websites? A key word to mention in here is non-aggressive, and I look at non-aggressive dogs because states label some breeds as aggressive, and I didn't want that to get in the way of my research. I was looking at regulations of the common dog, like the Labrador Retriever. Would there be more regulation on dogs compared to fish? Are there different intensities, even though one has the possibility of devastating an ecosystem while the other one really doesn't? So I wanted to look at that and try to figure out why the two might be different. So I'm not going to tell you all of the findings because, quite frankly, all of them don't need to be said. There's a lot of things that went wrong in the research. I passed the class and I passed this paper, and it was a great paper, great presentation, but there were things that kind of missed the mark in my book. One of those things is the idea that there might be already a federal law in place, so because of the supremacy clause, states wouldn't have to make those regulations. Because the federal government manages the Mississippi River and Yellowstone National Park and federal imports and exports, and also the Great Lakes, there might not be some sort of law regulations in the states because there's already a federal law regulation. That was something that I missed. One of the big things I missed that I really messed up on was I didn't talk about Hawaii. Hawaii is one of the states that have the largest, in the United States, has one of the largest export rates of ornamental type fish because, I mean, they're in the middle of the ocean. And I didn't look at that to see if there were specific regulations on exporting fish. It was something that missed the mark in my book, and I really was kicking myself when I finished my research and I was typing it up. And then Susan from SLC Aquatics was having some people on her live stream, and they were talking about my paper because I had mentioned it, and it just, they mentioned Hawaii, and it clicked in my head that, dang, I missed it. I could have used that, and I didn't. One of the reasons that I listed why dogs, and by the way, dogs are treated a lot different than fish. According to my 14-page research paper on the topic, dogs are treated a lot differently than fish. Fish really aren't regulated that much. In fact, if you're doing anything, as long as the ornamental fish doesn't come in contact with a native fish, isn't being used as bait or food, there are literally no laws or regulations in most of the states. Whereas dogs, even in some states, they tell you how to raise your dog. When it comes to fish, there's nothing. So yeah, that was pretty much the end game of my research, was just to say that there are a lot of discrepancies between dogs and fish. Even though fish have the potential to wreak havoc on an ecosystem, there really isn't a lot of resources on the topic. In fact, most government websites don't mention anything of ornamental fish. You have to specifically use various databases to find anything related to the topic of ornamental fish in specific states. Meanwhile, dogs, you can find day and night. In any government website, there's bound to be something related to dogs. And I think that shows how society treats the different animals. With dogs, people more associate them with seeing them every day. They see them outside, they think they're cute and adorable. Fish, they assume, are secluded somewhere, kept away from society, and that they don't cause harm to anything because they're in little glass boxes. But it's not the fish that's necessarily causing harm, but it's the humans that release the fish into the wild, flush them down the toilets, or really don't pay attention to what they're doing. So I think this was a pretty interesting research paper for myself anyway, because it's the first time I ever talked about ornamental fish or any type of the aquarium hobby in a paper that I've written. And it went over pretty well, so I think if I were to do this again in the future, I would focus on different aspects of society, maybe like demographic information, different regions of the world maybe instead of states, and maybe look at federal and international law. Those are things that I would change, but at the end of the day, the paper went over well. I passed, and everything turned out happy and hunky-dory, so I'm officially done with political science. I spent the last 3 years taking almost nothing but political science courses, and I am now done. I just have to finish my minor. My minor's in marketing, so I am almost done with school now. And something I want to point out with this is it's nothing political because it's just primarily research. Since I didn't look at political parties and I didn't look at specific laws or regulations that political parties pass, this has nothing to do with politics. It's completely nonpartisan. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you all learned something new. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I've been answering questions about this for the last week, so I probably have an idea of some of the questions you guys might ask. So if you have a question, leave it down below. Make sure you give it a like. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.